regularly scheduled Planning Commission meeting. Today is Tuesday, July 11th, 2017. Would you all please rise and join me in reciting the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And if these proceedings are being recorded by Simsbury Community TV, I do say thank you. Okay, now we'll have a roll call. Holly Bem?
Here.
Robert Kulikowski?
Present.
Aaron Levitt-Smith?
Here.
Ron Locondro? Absent. Alan Needham?
Here.
William Rice? Present. Elizabeth Burt?
Present.
Mark Drake? Absent. Gary Lungarini? Absent. Okay, so we have opportunity to promote Elizabeth Burt to a regular member today, so I'll seat you as a regular member. That gives us a full commission tonight. Thank you. Okay, on our agenda, we have no old business, there's no public hearings, and no old applications to take action on. We do have some new business. First one is a referral from...
You want to do a minute?
Oh, sorry, I went right over that.
Yeah, you did.
Okay. My mistake, going to back up. Approval of the minutes, please, Mr. Kulikowski.
Okay, the minutes for the Tuesday, June 13th, 2017, Planning Commission regular meeting is what we're looking at here. Everybody have their copy, and I'm sure you read it all at home and understand it. Okay, any changes, page 1? Any pages, page 2? Changes, page 2. Page 3?
Oh, I'm sorry, page 2.
Page 2.
Line 96, I just want to confirm that the person who spoke was Mike Goman?
No.
I don't remember him being there.
No.
I
don't either.
do not either.
Oh, I know who that is. Tom Frank.
Oh, yes.
Tom
Tom
Good
Frank,
call.
yeah, Tom Frank
is up
came,
above.
and he came back and he spoke about the school system.
Right.
Okay, Pam, you got that? Line 96? And that's Tom Frank, 19 Banbury Drive.
That's correct.
So wherever it may mention Mr. Goman, please change that to Mr. Frank.
Well, Tom is noted on line 70.
Yeah, remember, first he spoke about the Economic Development
Oh, and then he came.
Commission,
Mm-hmm.
He
right?
spoke for the Board of Ed.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah,
He
Mr.
spoke about
Goman
the
was
school.
not there.
You
I
gotta speak
remember that.
for the
That's
board.
true.
So let's strike that part of the first sentence in 96, noting that he is on the Board of Education. I don't believe Mr. Frank is.
He is,
Yeah,
He is?
he is.
Okay, let's leave that.
And I believe he stated that night.
Okay.
I think you did. I think you're
Yep.
right.
Thanks, Bob.
Yep, page 3. I'll entertain a motion to accept the minutes as amended of the regular meeting, June 13th.
So moved.
I second.
So motion made by Aaron, seconded by Holly.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Any abstentions? Thank you all.
Thank you, Bob.
You're welcome.
Okay, now we'll get back to where I thought we were going to be. Okay, our first order of new business is a referral, CGS 8-3A. Referral to the zoning, we have to make a referral to the zoning commission on zoning commission application number 17-35 of Chip Canarum, agent, for proposed text amendments to Article 5, Section 1.B.C, temporary uses, of the Town of Simsbury zoning regulations temporary camping, including both tent and recreational vehicles, may be permitted for no more than 3 consecutive nights on Town of Simsbury-owned property, provided that the organization is granted permission by the Board of Selectmen and applies for a public gathering permit from the Town of Simsbury. And Article 6, Section C of the Town of Simsbury zoning regulations to add the following language after trailer camps. Unless expressly permitted elsewhere in these regulations on a temporary basis. Okay, do we have a representative of the applicant?
Yes, Chip Granero.
Good
I'm
evening.
requesting a favorable referral. If you'd like, I can explain the background of how this gets here now.
That would be great, yeah.
Sure. I am a member of the Performing Arts Center Board of Directors. And that's a not-for-profit organization, and they lease the Iron Horse Boulevard parcel on which the concerts are given and essentially manage it. So it's a not-for-profit organization leasing land from the town, and we, as the non-for-profit, operate the facility. For a number of years, at least while we were operating it, there has been some casual camping on the site. We, under our lease, thought it was permissible with the town. I don't, I'm not gonna say an opinion of whether it was right or not, but that's what happened in the past. This year, it became a little bit more formalized because we have one event coming up in August where there is going to be a jazz festival on the premises. And the promoter of that jazz festival had advertised in their literature a formal camping program for a couple-day concert where people could stay over at night between the concerts. The promoter has made extensive preparations for this to make this work in a safe and healthy way. There are provisions that the promoter can make for waste removal, there are porta potties, there's rules, there's security, and everything has been contemplated. That was presented to the town as part of that concert when the public gathering permit was granted for the event, but it was not clearly in writing afterwards that the camping component had been fully discussed. So when people inquired about that, apparently town staff and the town attorney reviewed the regulations and determined that it would be appropriate from a zoning point of view that there be an express provision about camping. And you just heard the provision read. At least in my view, it's a fairly stringent regulation of how you would accomplish temporary camping in town, at any site, not just ours. It would apply town-wide, but as you can see, it's fairly stringent. It has to be approved by the Board of Selectmen, and it has to be part of the public gathering permit process, which has input from town's public safety, fire marshal, police, and so forth, as well as other agencies. So any camping that would be permitted would be very strictly regulated under this provision. And I say it would apply town-wide, I would assume that that would also apply for other camping that has gone on in the past and will go on in the future, such as Boy Scouts. There's camping in Terrifield Park for the kayakers and things like that. So it would be a more formalized way to approach it under our zoning regulations. But the end result only applies to, by its term, only applies to town property, and it only applies to town property where permitted. So I think from the planning commission point of view, the thing for you to consider, if you were to give us the positive or favorable referral that we seek, is that would be consistent with the town plan of development. And I would urge that, at least as applied to our use, I think is very much favorable. The Performing Arts Center puts on concerts, and this would be one way to enhance the experience, particularly at this type of concert. It's a jazz concert, and as I said, very strictly regulated. The people who would be staying overnight from one day to the next for that concert. So we think it's a very good result and very favorable to the town, and therefore we ask for your favorable referral.
Commissioners,
I have a question.
questions, comments?
So this went before the Board of Selectmen as a gathering permit? at some point?
I don't think strictly the Board of Selectmen. They have and I've never attended the public gathering permit process.
Excuse me, Mr. Canarum. Excuse me, commissioners? Could we concentrate on the applicant, please, for a moment?
So, I guess my question is, I thought I heard you say that this was approved?
Well, the specific, I wasn't there, and so I can't tell you personal knowledge.
When was that?
I've heard, I don't know the exact date, but it's a matter of they usually do all the public gathering permits in the early spring, late winter timeframe. We lay out our whole schedule, and each of the concerts is subject to the scrutiny when they.
If I said it was in February, does that make sense?
Sure, that sounds pretty close.
I believe it was,
Yeah.
okay. So at that meeting, when
Yes.
they approved this,
Yes.
were they told that camping would be involved?
I've heard conflicting versions. I mean, candidly, the person who presented it from our side says, yes, they were told. But I wasn't there, and if people say they didn't hear it, that may be right. I don't really know the answer to that.
Well, the only thing I can go on is the televised meeting of the Board of Selectmen, and watching that, it seemed clear to me that they were not told that camping would be. So I would think they should know. If there was camping, would it include fires?
Yes.
Yes,
It would.
I read the rules that are proposed, and they're strict rules about having a campfire, but yes, the rules as suggested by this promoter would include that. But of course, it's the prerogative of the town to say that won't happen if the town doesn't want it to happen.
And where would the camping be? Where would people, what would they be
This
on?
proposed event is in what we call the C and D lots, which are behind a row of foliage from the field. If you're looking from Iron Horse Boulevard to the open grassy field, the parking lot is actually behind another row of trees. If you want to access it, you go through the parking lot, and where the red barn is, there's a little roadway that goes into the back area.
So it's closer to the river.
To the wetlands.
Okay. Is it cleared land? Is it treed?
Sure. Yeah, it's actually a gravel parking lot.
Can you tell me why the promoter promoted camping without it being approved ahead of time? Was he given the idea that it was okay? I mean, that seems like quite an assumption to me, that camping would be allowed.
No, I don't think that was an assumption. I think the promoter knew it was okay, it had happened in the past, and I think that was expressly part of the arrangement. Again, I wasn't there, but my understanding of the situation is yes, the promoter was permitted to do that. In fact, I think it had been done the previous year.
This is a bunch of lies.
Seems to me not a good policy by the town to change its zoning regulations because a promoter of an event decides to break town regulations, advertise camping, permit camping. This is a one-time event. Once this is put into town regulations, it would be for everybody anytime, as long as they get the permission. Then I do have a question.
Well, can I respond to that first?
Yes, sure. That wasn't a question, actually, but.
I don't believe any regulations were broken. I think what you have before you is a more strict view or a more strict regulation of camping than previously existed. And this promoter certainly was not the first to contemplate it or do it. The Boy Scouts have been doing it for years. I mean, camping has been going on for years on town land in the town of Simsbury. This is the first time somebody questioned it. But I thoroughly reviewed the regulations, and there is no prohibition in the regulations. So at least under the interpretation that I think is reasonable, camping was never prohibited in the town of Simsbury.
Yes, it was.
Prohibited uses, Article 6 zoning regulations, and one of the prohibited uses is trailer camps.
Yes. And a trailer camp, as I understand it, is a facility where you have mobile homes and trailers. That's not the same as camping. Camping is separately defined in the regulations.
Yet you are talking about permitting trailers as well as tents, aren't you?
No, I believe the application
Recreational
is.
vehicles.
Recreational vehicles, correct.
What's the difference between a camping trailer and a recreational vehicle?
A recreational vehicle is self-propelled. A camper has to be towed. But I think more importantly, what the regulations prohibit are mobile homes.
Let me please remind the commission that our referral has to pertain to the plan of conservation and development. Okay, so if, we should deliberate on that basis. Okay?
Yeah, my questions were just trying to understand what's going on, but you're
Mhm.
right, I agree. I agree.
Yeah, we can't try to interpret or rewrite the zoning regulations in this instance. Mike, what's the, is it at the pleasure of the chairman to entertain public questions?
It is pleasure of the chairman if you'd like to take public comment on this one.
Mr. Kinerum, do you have any other comments that you'd like to make at this point?
No, but I think there was another question. I didn't mean to cut you off from the question, I just wanted to address what you had said.
Mr. Chairman, if I could just clarify a few statements. So, how this application came about was that our office was made aware of the activities that were proposed down at Simsbury Meadows. Upon a thorough review of the regulations, the zoning officer, under guidance of town council, determined that our regs are permissive as nature. So meaning, if you have a use that's not defined in our regs, it's not allowed in town. Now, in the case of camping, we have a definition of what a campground is, but we don't have it as a use in any zoning district in the town. So the opinion through council was that it was a use, unfortunately, under our regs that was prohibited. So this application is to kind of clear up and say, if we're going to allow it in town, it'll be in these very specific conditions. And just to give a point of background on the public gathering permits. So the public gathering permits are approved by the Board of Selectmen. There's a subcommittee made up of the Director of Park and Recreation, the Director of Public Works, representatives from the Fire Marshal's Office, representatives from the Police Department, Land Use Department, if needed, the Building Department and Health Department meet and discuss applications for public gathering permits, which are temporary events that are held with attendance greater than, I believe it's 75 people on public property. So if this regulation were to be approved by the zoning commission, the Board of Selectmen and also that subcommittee would look at these case-by-case applications of this use. So, and really, that's how it's would work. To get back on the commission, the chairman's comments, the commission's role really is just limited, so does this meet the goals and objectives of your plan of conservation and development? And so that's where really we have to kind of wait out. And just one other thing is that, let's say that the commission says, I can't find where in the current POCD this meets our plan of conservation development, and you were to give a negative referral to the zoning commission. It does not mean this application is denied. It just means that if the zoning commission were to approve the application, they need a 2/3 majority vote to approve it, or super majority basically.
Which is the same as a majority vote, because we've only got 6 members. Correct?
Well, it would be 4 out of 6 votes, so yeah.
Yeah, that's the same thing.
Yeah.
Same number.
Okay, just a clarification, so you said camping right now isn't permissible at any town land?
Anywhere, camping as a
Camping.
use, as a campground, is not allowed in town. And
But
that's what
people
this-
could camp, so that's
So, well, I mean, here's
like at
here's
Town Forest Road, because
here's
the
the-
Boy Scouts do camp at Town Forest Road.
Technically, under the regs, a formalized campground, which would function the same thing as defined by our regs, is not allowed under the regs. The Boy Scouts, if you wanted a strict interpretation of whether that use is allowed, it's not.
If we turn down this referral, does this mean that we are suggesting that the Boy Scouts be disallowed to camp?
No, you're just saying it doesn't
You're
meet
just
your
saying
plan
it
of
doesn't fit
conservation.
our
It
POC.
Oh, I mean,
doesn't
that's-
meet, no, you're not.
But are we saying that it doesn't,
So-
just in this one case, or?
You're
Difference in
saying
that,
that
so you have two
this
different.
referral does or does not fit the PLCD, that's all.
Yeah,
Okay.
you're strictly advisory on that.
Okay.
That comment, that question, that would be more of a zoning commission on their
okay.
regulations.
Thank you.
So Attorney Knierim, could you cite any areas in the Plan of Conservation and Development that you believe this application supports or enhances, or vice versa? Does the POCD support your application?
I didn't research any specific sites, but I can urge that I think that this very much enhances recreational and, favorable uses of a town facility. I think the Performing Arts Center is a good thing for the town, and I think that would be consistent with the overall intent of the Plan of Conservation and Development.
Any other questions for the applicant?
But
I reserve, okay, go ahead.
Comment on one thing, and I think maybe the Boy Scouts are a good example. Of course, Mr. Glidden is correct that, and I would not argue for a moment that campgrounds as such are prohibited in this town. I mean, that's relatively clear, and I can get that from the regulations. But I think the Boy Scouts at Town Forest are a very interesting thing to think about in this argument. Because the Boy Scouts camp at Town Forest does not make Town Forest a campground. A Town Forest is a park in our town that we all use for a lot of different uses, camping just being one of them. So from a land use point of view, that's not a campground, and nobody would say Town Forest is a campground. I think the same thing clearly applies to the Performing Arts Center. Our main function is to host events, and not just music events. I mean, we host, runs and all kinds of other events, graduation. It's just a variety of things. Now, camping would be one small use that is part of another bigger use. It would not be our intention to make it a campground. That's certainly not what we're interested in. This is just to help facilitate a weekend concert, which we think is being managed in a very professional way, and we think would be good for the town as a whole.
But in this case, the promoter is charging a fee to the people that are camping in that area.
Yes, and
That-
from,
To me, puts a little different flavor.
Well-
It's-
sure, but I just like to,
Who gets the fee, by the way?
the Performing Arts Center, our
Center
board.
does it.
Yes, and we charge the promoter many other fees. Now, the relationship between our board and the town of Simsbury is there's a formal lease agreement with the town of Simsbury, which I suppose if you take it to its extreme, you'd call this a sublease. You have an event come in, and they pay a certain amount of money to use the facility, which we continue to manage during their use, but there are contracts, and those terms are defined, what the promoter can and cannot do with those facilities during those times that they're using.
And you just say they can have campfires?
That was in the regulations. I mean, honestly, I'm not sure anybody thought about this. The promoter has a very strict set of regulations, and campfires were in it. But certainly, since the town of Simsbury can approve the use, if the town of Simsbury doesn't want campfires, there won't be any. This proposal goes to the town, and the town approves or disapproves of the use for camping. And if one of Simsbury's regulations is gonna be no fires, then it's gonna be no fires. I would guess that would get input from the fire marshal, and I don't believe the fire marshal had any disagreement when when they heard about it, that would be a significant issue. But if they do it, you know, it would be up, according to the way this regulation, I mean, this regulation actually gives the town a lot more power than they currently exert over camping. So if the Boy Scouts are at town forest and they have a fire, they didn't ask and nobody thought whether they should give them permission or not. I mean, not that they would do anything wrong, and they probably don't do anything wrong. But this way, because the town has to approve it, these issues would be addressed by the town before any permission to use the property is given there.
Okay, going to reserve the right to ask you to come back up if need be.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any members of the public who'd like to make a comment? Please come to the podium, state your name and address, and please address the commission.
Joan Cove, 26 Whitcomb Drive. First of all, I think there were a couple of incorrect comments. The PAC had given the gathering permit people, they told them that there would be 2 concerts. Never mentioned camping, never mentioned anything. Then their own board were not even told that camping and trailers and tents and all this would be approved. Only after the fact did their own board know. So this is something where Dave Ryan and Tom Vincent were being a little untruthful in telling them that this was, and once it got approved, after the fact they would say, as they usually do, that they already paid, they already have their tents, they already have everything, and we can't stop it now because it's just too late. And also the town has a contract with the performing arts. There is nothing in the contract that says that they can do camping and whatever they want. This, I think, is a violation, in my opinion, I'm not an attorney, but I think this is a violation of a contract. The performing arts gives the town $2,500 for the entire season. And we, the taxpayers, have to bear the brunt of what they're gonna have with this concert is 24/7 music and camping. And nobody is going to be in charge. At the last concert, they said that there was no tailgating. This was the one Sunday night. The tailgating was all over town. Nobody monitored it. There were fires in the grills. It was an absolute mess. Nobody is in charge. There were lines all over the place. The camping, what they're gonna do is put it in the wetlands. And that C&D is way down near the river. And so that's a problem. There is nobody that's going to monitor this. There is nothing in the plan of development that says that you are not supposed to protect the life safety of the people of Simsbury and the health of the people. These are out-of-town people. These aren't Boy Scouts. These are people coming to a concert with who knows what in their tent. We don't know what they're doing. There is no control over this. And you can't compare a private organization raising hundreds of dollars for this, and here's their brochure saying that you have camping and campfires, and it's an total aberration, this thing. This is nothing that, when I paid $1.8 million for the performing arts, I did not expect to have a trailer park down there for 3 days. Everybody complains about the music, that it's loud, it's boisterous, it's annoying, and you're going to give the town, who paid for this field, a complete 3-day concert with noise, trailer parks, all. Just think of this. The Boy Scouts are a couple of kids from Simsbury trying to have a good time. This is not 100 people coming with their trailers for 3-day concert. Concerts bring drugs. Concerts we have pot at every concert, so everybody's smoking pot. You can't enforce it. How do you enforce 100 trailers? You're gonna go in and talk to them? You can't do that. You're violating their rights. You're gonna have a big mess. This is a slippery slope. This is not what Simsbury, this is not the character of Simsbury. We're not number one because we invite people from out of town to party on our land. And we get nothing for it. $2,500. Read the contract. They are taking advantage. They are taking control. We are losing control. And this is not, we envision this to be a park for families to come and gather. Not for people out of town. Not for people coming in with all kinds of drugs and alcohol and everything else. This is not what we paid for. This is Simsbury, a family town. Do you want to bring your kids to the trailer park? I don't think so. This is absolute, you should just stop it before it starts. There should be a bad referral, say this is not Simsbury, this is not in our plan of development, this is not the health and welfare of the community, this is not the character of Simsbury, this is not a family kind of organization. And it has to be stopped because it's constantly going, they lie, they don't give the whole truth. There are other permits coming in that they haven't told anybody about. And this has to stop. We have to bring the center, the performing arts, and the symphony works fine. We have a symphony, it's turnkey, family event. This is not a family event. These are outsiders coming into our property, and it has to be stopped because this is just a slippery slope. And they shouldn't be making money off our land. This is not what we envisioned, and I'm sure none of you envisioned when you paid $1.8 million for that land to be a soccer field. That's how it was. You wanted a family event, soccer fields, and that's it. So this is an aberration. This should not be it should not be approved, and I think we ought to go back to family values. Thank you.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to make a comment? Okay, commissioners?
No, I do have one small comment. Do I have to use the podium?
Yes, you do.
All right, I'm going to make one small comment.
Please state your name and address as well.
Lauren Nigro, 4 Colburn Farms. I used to be the chairwoman for Troop 174. The only thing I want to add, I don't know how I feel about overnight trailer parks. My inclination is, I have to scratch my head a little bit because of some of the comments that were made. But I will say, with the correlation to the Boy Scouts, it is dramatically different. The Boy Scouts pride themselves with the leave no trace behind tradition. And those boys are trained from the wee blows right on up, that they are to make sure that you cannot even tell that they have been on the land. So it's the only comment I have to make. I don't think it's a good comparison.
Thank you. Okay, commissioners, comments?
I would like to make a comment referring to the POCD, which I do not have in front of me, but I see Alan has in front of him. And 2 points. One of the things the POCD is intended to do is to protect water resources, and I'm concerned about trash being thrown into the river and left along the river edge. If campers are there, they're going to be tempted to go down to the river. So I'm worried about that. And the other thing is preserving open space and scenic views, and one of them is the meadows, which would include the area where the campers would be. And to preserve the view, I don't consider putting campers on that as preserving the view. I think that would be a detriment to the open space, to the view, to the natural resources.
Even if it's temporary? I mean, I
Even
agree
if it's
with you.
temporary, yeah, even if it's for 3 days, yes. Plus the
Eventually, that
damage,
is more permanent, but.
plus the damage that would be done for, I've been a camper for years, and I know that people who decide to have little fires go out in the woods and they chop down trees and they chop down branches. They can't resist.
Is this viewable? I got the feeling this is behind a mess of trees or the barn. I'm actually surprised there was ever camping. I bike around there every single day. And so where's this parking lot seen?
Mr. Chairman, you want me to address this?
I'm not quite sure.
If you look at the soccer field, there's trees on the far side before the river, it's right there.
So it's behind the trees.
Behind the trees.
So the view, is it viewable from a public road? I mean, if we're protecting the view, is this in view?
There's a hiking trail back there.
The view from the hiking trail?
I would say generally no.
Generally not, yeah, I would agree with that.
Yes, please, Alan.
Yeah, I think the chairman's quite correct in that we should limit our decision-making to what we see in the POCD. What I was drawn to is that on page 46 of the current POCD, the Iron Horse Meadows are listed as a aesthetic character place worthy of protection. If you go over to page 48, Policy 1, continue to identify and protect the resources, sense of place, quality of life that contribute to the overall character of Simsbury. To me, this is just a detrimental use to what has been considered a character place. I think a lovely area crowded with people for an evening's concert, that's great. I think to extend it to overnight camping is a different thing altogether.
All right, maybe I have a little different take on this.
Fair enough.
It seems to me that the zoning regulations might be a little loose at this point, and that this activity could occur without even being permitted. If the proposed text amendment is included with the zoning regulations, it would give the town more leverage and more definition to what is permitted or what is allowable with a special permit.
As a practical matter, I suppose that's true, but what has that got to do with the POCD? The POCD doesn't say what we want to do is make sure that our zoning regulations are current on this issue. What I see here, again, not to repeat, but I'm going to anyway, is that I think it does damage to a character place. There's nothing in here about camping, we know that, we've all looked at it, okay?
Right.
And like other issues that come before us, you have to look pretty hard to find references, and sometimes they conflict. You could, for example, give an argument that this is positive for economic development.
Yeah.
Except the town's piece of this is awfully small.
Yeah, but it spills over into the businesses. People are gonna go to restaurants.
Yeah,
and-
I think that's not proven. That may be true, but I think that's not proven. So sticking with the POCD, I'm concerned with the having camping, right off our main village, right next to a soccer field, I think is detrimental to the town character.
The
Which
text
I've
and,
said 3 times, so
the text amendment does not allow this activity without being permitted.
And that's what gives me peace of mind, because we're talking about the Board of Selectmen and a process that involves the fire chief, the recreation department, and also in the zoning regulations, any temporary uses that are permitted come with conditions which will safeguard the character of the neighborhood. So I could see that there might be, the first time we do it, things go not the way we anticipated. And then the next time this particular event was requested, it would be denied because there would be some knowledge it got out of hand. So I think the only danger in this, as far as a protection issue, is maybe an unintended consequence of a first use that doesn't go the way we want to, but I don't think it's turning our town into a trailer park.
Well,
I think it would
Don't think
be
anybody said that.
attractive for younger people. I mean, we're kind of a, we're Simsbury, right? And we've said over and over, and we heard from the town folks that we want people here, we want economic development. I think if it's highly protected, I see two protections: the public gathering permit and the zoning regulations that specifically require it in order to be held.
well, there was a public gathering permit issued for this already. Nobody mentioned the camping. The fire issue is still up in the air. That's the hole in this.
Well, and that's where I think
the
Bill's
problem.
point, as far as the preservation issue is, if we allow this amendment, then this gives the public gathering permit committee members more leverage over what's occurring.
That's all about the regulation. I'm having a hard time trying to tie the text amendment to the POCD.
Oh, it's definitely hard to do.
Yeah, it is hard to do.
On the one hand, if someone wants to make a leap of faith that this text amendment will enhance the economic development of the town, okay, that's consistent with, but if.
I make that leap. Tell you right now, that's what the PAC is for. It's there to enhance the economic development of Simsbury, to bringing folks in from maybe outside our borders that come and enjoy and spend their money and see the possibility of a nice Simsbury, and Simsbury is a place to go, a destination. So I see it as an enhancement to the economic development of Simsbury.
But on the other hand, as Elizabeth pointed out, there could be detrimental effects on, for instance, surface water. Runoff from the 3-day gathering.
Well, I get that, I really do. But these are concert goers. I doubt that the alcohol is gonna stop at the end of the concert, I don't know that.
I don't think, personally, I don't think you can make that leap. You don't know. You don't know how it's going to,
I
we
said
don't
I-
know how it's going to be enforced.
I'd feel
And
better if I
unfortunately,
did.
we know that. If we knew that, that'd be different. But again, taking it back to the POCD, I see it as an economic plus for the town of Simsbury to have these concerts and bring venues like this in where we're actually using the $1.8 million we spent to build that for the betterment of Simsbury. It wasn't built for just the people of Simsbury, it was built for the betterment of the residents of Simsbury.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with the concerts, I hope that's clear. It's this addition to the concert I have a problem.
But what happened was, it did raise a glaring hole in some of our regs. And we have to see on the POCD if we're gonna have to fill the reg hole anyway. No matter what, the reg hole has to be filled, because, that we're not putting that genie back in the bottle. So either we feel that it does enhance the POCD, it is enhance the economic development, or for the things that Elizabeth and you brought up, that it doesn't. And that, to me, that's the clear answer.
That's the choice.
Yes.
Well, that's the problem.
Yes.
I think that's where, Alan, you said that it's conflictual in the
Well, everything is
POCD.
conflictual.
Well, your point is well taken, but Elizabeth's point of people possibly throwing trash into the river, and, it depends on how you comb through the POCD, because I think Alan brings up a good point. With our current one, I think our newer one probably will be less so, but there's contradictions, so, but to Holly's point, I'm conflicted, to be honest with you, because I agree with Holly that there's protections, that it's, I think Bill stated it well, this is not giving people permission, carte blanche, that this is just allowing people to go and apply, and that people have to approve it, and so that gives me comfort. So I'm conflicted as to which way to go, to be honest with you. I can see it both ways. But I am concerned about two things. A, I feel like it's the tail wagging the dog. They're coming to this because somebody made a mistake along the way, didn't inform people, and oh, now we've got to hurry up and get a text amendment. So that I don't like. I don't like the reason why it's coming before us, because it does feel to me like it's the tail wagging the dog. And so that gives me pause to not want to approve it, to be honest with you. I just, and the fires, I don't like the idea that people could be setting fires because, as Mrs. Nigro mentioned, the Boy Scouts do not leave trace. And so everything is cleaned up. I'm not that confident that many party goers are gonna clean up, and what's that gonna look like, trash-wise and fire-wise? That does concern me. If we could put something into, so those are just two kind of glaring things in my mind.
Okay, so I know that we're dwelling on the PAC, but if this text amendment is approved, it would apply to any town-owned property. And maybe, the effect on groundwater or the river wouldn't be as significant at town forest, for instance. But the question is, is this text amendment in any way either in concert with or in conflict with the POCD?
Both.
Okay, then maybe we
It's
should.
Both.
Can we
Mr. Chairman,
say that? Is that-
maybe just to think of it this way, so as an independent observer right now, I've heard some members say the economic development or economics of this proposal outweigh, really drive them towards this. You also have the conflict with the sense of place and the potential for adverse effect to the sense of place. I know we're focusing on Simsbury Meadows, and I think the chairman gives an excellent point that this is not just Simsbury Meadows. So maybe let's use this as an example. Onion Mountain Park. If someone were to go up there to say, I'm going to have a camping event up there with 100 campers, tents, and RVs, would that change the sense of place in that location?
Yeah, I can't imagine.
Just to think, because remember, you're looking at it global, not just
Right.
the epicenter, the center of town.
Of course,
Your center of town, at least under your current POCD, has a focus on it as a special place. So that should be giving a higher sense of awareness to your sense of place. So I guess now you go back to those two comments. Will this use at all, as proposed, pose a negative effect to the sense of community character in places of town? Or do you see a benefit from an economic development standpoint throughout the town, not just the center, if this use is allowed via the permitting structure? Because your permitting structure, that's a regulatory concern that'll be dealt with from a zoning commission and board of selectmen standpoint. So you're looking, 5 years from now, we allow this use, and will there be long-term negative effects? And I know Elizabeth brought up some comments on spin-off activities that may occur associated with the camping. Do you feel that those may have some negative effects to surrounding areas where this could go? I mean, another example would be Terrifield Park, if this occurred out at Terrifield Park. Would you see long-term negative effects from this use?
Mike, let me ask you a question. And I'm deviating from my own directions to the commission. With the zoning regulations as they're written now, if someone wanted to have a 3-day camping experience at Terrifield Park, could they do that?
No.
it's not
It's
permitted.
not allowed under the regs. I don't see a mechanism, and that is why the applicant is instructed to.
Okay. So
Propose a text
all this
amendment.
stuff that's been happening with the Boy Scouts and stuff that was,
Well, here's the catch on this. The Boy Scouts, how long has that been occurring? I mean, I don't want to give a zoning opinion right now, but I'll just throw this out there just for food for thought. These regulations current definitions may have been adopted, let's say, the last comprehensive revision to the regs, 2008, maybe a more comprehensive review is in 96. So that whenever that definition of campground came into our regs, if the Boy Scouts were doing that prior to that, they may be considered existing non-conforming, meaning they may not be told to stop what they're doing because of that. And the other thing too is comparing them to the Boy Scouts, although it's camping still occurring, you know, you don't, the only maybe other difference is the fact that you're selling plots, but the camping is what's driving the boat, so I won't go down that road. They're akin because the camping is camping, so. But the only thing I would say is it may predate current regulations, so they may be apples and oranges, the two of them.
You want to make a motion? Yes. Go ahead, Mr. Kolakowski.
I make a motion to send a positive referral to the zoning board of this text amendment, and that it does meet the economic criteria inside the POCD.
Do I have a second?
I will second.
Okay, so Mr. Kolakowski made a motion for a positive referral, referencing a positive economic impact. And Ms. Bem seconded. Any discussion on the motion? All in favor of the motion, please say aye.
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 So we have Mr. Kolakowski and Ms. Bem. All opposed, say nay.
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 I can't decide, so.
No, you have to vote.
You're paid to decide.
You
I
have to
know.
vote.
We're paid.
I know I do.
So what are you saying?
I'm really conflicted. I have to say, I don't know. I'm sorry. I really,
You know
So-
what, Aaron?
So
I
you
love you
can't
like a
make a
sister,
positive.
but you're here to decide.
I know, Alan, but I'm really conflicted, so help me
I am
make an
too.
argument, help me make, I mean.
Oh,
Are you
vote.
abstaining?
Deliberate, you can abstain.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay, so the motion is for a positive referral, citing the economic development potential.
Well, the other option is you,
I'm sorry, we have a vote.
Yeah, we have a motion. There's
right.
no other options.
No, I didn't mean that. I meant that
We're still voting.
by voting no, you say you're not making a positive recommendation,
Correct.
correct?
Unless the motion gets a majority vote, it fails. And the motion is to send a positive referral.
I don't know about that, Alan.
Sure.
Motion is to send a positive referral.
And if that motion fails,
So we're gonna send a positive, okay, so we get to
Send a
that.
negative referral.
I'm gonna say no.
The motion does not pass.
Motion failed. So they'll be forwarded to the zoning commission that did not make a favorable motion. Correct. A favorable recommendation.
Right.
Thank you.
Very good, everyone. Good job.
But going to Alan's point, if it tied 3-3, it wouldn't have been a positive, correct?
correct.
Motion would have failed.
It would have failed anyway, somebody
The
voted.
tie is a fail.
Okay.
So it's not your fault.
No, it wouldn't have mattered, right.
Okay, thank you, everyone. Next, under referrals, it's really kind of new business, or a referral letter from the first selectman regarding Deepwater Wind application to Connecticut Siting Council for a 26.4 megawatt solar installation. I believe everyone's aware of this petition that's been submitted to the state for the photovoltaic panel array, Hoskins and county roads. I think under council, the Board of Selectmen has asked boards and commissions for input. Unlike a lot of other referrals that we've been asked to make, this one, we are not obligated to make a judgment or any type of comment. But I think given the sensitivity of this application, you know, I'd at least like to hear what the commissioners have to say about this petition's applicability to the plan of conservation and development.
If I may, Mr. Chairman. I'm sorry, I'm sorry.
You start.
Mr. Chairman, so what is our output of this deliberation that we're gonna have? Are we gonna have an official document, maybe?
They're looking for a letter.
Yeah, what I would envision is a bit of correspondence referencing any applicable sections of the POCD that the petition satisfies, or perhaps some others where it's in conflict with it.
That's correct. So, although you're not going to the zoning commission, and this is, let's go back up a little bit. So this application is going to be made to the Connecticut Siting Council. So it's a state agency that will be permitting and reviewing this. You are extremely advisory on this. And in the sense that, as the chairman kind of indicated, your role would be, do you have any sections of the conservation and plan of conservation development of which this is either in conflict with, or it meets the goals and objectives, similar just what we do like the last 8.3A referral. What I would say to this is your staff is that I know that this is the first you've seen what was in the packet of the few maps that are off the petition filing, along with just the executive summary, which was about 40-something pages. It's a 1,200-page petition. If you go to the Siting Council app, the Board of Selectmen wants to hear from the land use commissions, but wants a deadline by July 31st. You have another meeting. Maybe what we can discuss right now is if you have any questions for staff, or we could ask council to be present at the next meeting if you have legal questions as your role as the planning staff in reviewing it. If they're available, they can attend your next meeting. But it's an extremely advisory position that you're in, because the majority of the regulatory authority by statute is given to the Connecticut Siting Council on these types of applications, similar, akin to the cell tower locations.
So I have a question. So it isn't the typical vote for or against a positive, negative referral at all. Can we simply state the things that we see that agree with the POCD and the things that do not?
You could just get a list, or you could say, you could do one of two things. You could say that just a blanket statement, it meets the goals and objectives of the 2007 Plan of Conservation Development, that's it. You could go into detail on why it meets, or why it does not. You could do nothing. You could take this and say, state's handling it, thank you very much. As your staff, I'd say you have a 1,200-page petition. It's a very large document. And you have time until July 31st to make any referrals to the Board of Selectmen. I would really stress, really digest this, and that we could discuss it at our next meeting. And like I said, if council's available, I could have council available for you at that meeting, but
I don't think that's necessary.
I'm offering it if the commission
I get
is
that.
uncomfortable.
I spent the weekend, I spent what I thought was a good hunk of the weekend going through the POCD, and I came up with a list of things that seem to apply and things that don't. What I was surprised to see is no direct reference that I could see in the current plan of conservation and development about advocating for alternative energy sources.
Well,
There was, I did find that.
Am I wrong?
as your consultant will point out later, we discussed this on our current update. The statute was amended, we're mandating resiliency and green as part of your plans moving forward. So that's an issue that, under our current plan, you're incorporating,
The new one,
the new one.
yeah, but the new one
But
isn't
you can't,
enforced.
that's a work in progress. You can't refer to, you're
That's what
bound
I'm
by
saying,
the
going to the old
2007.
But what about page 107?
Is that talking about rooftop solar panels?
It was to encourage use of green building technologies on economic development in page 105.
Okay, so let's
Yes,
make
that's-
let's make a decision here. Do we want to deliberate and discuss now? Or do we want to take a little more time and give all the commissioners the opportunity, because not everyone knew about this.
For my part, I'm content to discuss, but I can understand that this took me a long time. And if folks want more time, because Mike says we have it, it's okay with me.
Mr. Chairman, it appears that we have a number of people here who would like to give us public comment. Can we accept that?
Not at this point.
No, I don't.
We're not going to discuss it anymore, I don't think, right now.
Okay.
Will we have a representative of the company come to answer questions we have? Not at any point?
No, we're not debating the viability of the project. We're debating the adherence to the POCD.
Well, to clarify questions we might have that we don't understand about the project.
2 weeks.
2 weeks to do it.
If staff has the answer, we can give it to you, but I mean,
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I would, I think we should respond as a board, and I think we should be specific in our response. Not just that it doesn't meet the, or does meet the POCD, why it does or doesn't, and that's just my opinion. So I think if we do, I think we should send some kind of letter, and we should be clear on how it does and how it doesn't, be specific.
Would you like more time to get it?
I could go either way, I mean, I'm fine with discussing tonight,
I'd like
but
to have more time.
just make a suggestion, maybe because Alan, you've kind of got a list together already. If you have a list of concerns individually, you can send them to staff, and staff can compile them together for our next meeting and share them with the commission.
It's a question.
Yeah,
that'd be great.
individually, just contact either me or Jamie
Do you, Mike?
directly, yes.
Okay, so, yeah,
If you want to just, I'll be the point person.
so we can do that prior to our next meeting,
Prior to
which is
next
2 weeks
meeting.
from tonight.
Just email me if you have a Word document or anything, if it's just one question. Mike, I was looking at POCD page this.
Perfect.
And I'll put a list together of what we receive via email, and
Are you looking for questions or
comments,
clarifications?
questions, any
You know,
concerns.
I think
you have.
Alan has some references to specific sections in the POCD, is that correct?
Yep.
Okay, and do you plan to put that in a list and
I
send it to
do.
Mike?
I
All right, so let's, if you don't mind,
Not a bit.
rather than perhaps
retired
prejudice some of the other commissioners, just
One-on-one.
one-on-one.
Any communication, one-on-one
We
with
can't, we
me.
can't discuss this,
Amongst-
you know, amongst ourselves outside of this meeting.
No, everything goes through Mike. Yep.
All right, so I make a
No,
motion
thanks.
that we table this item until our next meeting on the 25th of July.
Second.
Oh, shoot, I'm not here the 25th.
I may not be. That's possible. And we don't have any more time past that.
No.
If you're not gonna be at the meeting, like I said, still send the comments to us,
Yeah,
if
but
these
I'm
staff
worried we
can.
might not have a quorum.
Or, exactly.
You only need 3. So who can make the next meeting for this?
I can.
I can.
Can or cannot?
Can.
Can, you have a quorum for the next meeting.
Right now.
Did you say,
Right
Elizabeth,
now.
you can be?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So, again, for clarification,
So, 3 of
Mike,
us?
are we voting on something, or are we just compiling a
You're just
letter?
combining
Say,
a
a letter
letter.
is different than a vote.
You're right, you're just compiling the letter.
Yeah, we're compiling a letter,
We have to have some type of consensus.
yes, but we're not actually taking a vote.
That's true.
You're writing the
Yeah,
letter.
we're writing a letter.
But it's
And-
assumed it's a letter that comes from the commission as a
Commission,
whole.
exactly.
And the Board of Selectmen would like your input by July 31st. If it falls past July 31st, I mean, it's not like it's a statutory requirement
Right.
similar to a subdivision or resub where
Mhm.
you need to act.
Right.
This is just, we would like it,
Yep.
so.
Since it's a letter, could we, if Alan isn't here, and Alan has performed a lot of work, and again, this isn't statutory, could his concerns be incorporated into it even? into,
Well, I'll send them
Yeah.
to Mike.
Send
Mike
it to
can
Mike.
address them as he chooses and share the information at the meeting, but it's gotta be done at a meeting.
Whatever's sent to me will be shared to the group.
Right.
So if you send something and you may not be at the meeting, your words will be shared.
Right.
However they're sent to me.
So Mike, just a point of clarification,
think it's
our
4.
quorum is 4.
Okay. Bob, can you make the meeting?
What's that? I'm not from Lake George.
You're out.
Bill, you're out?
I don't
I am
know.
definitely out.
I'm waiting to get some tickets. I might get them, they might not give them to me. Wish I could.
We don't know about Gary.
Yeah, I was about to say Gary, if anyone.
Well, I've done my research. I'm prepared to make my statements tonight.
I think we should do it then. It's too, I don't want to.
and I did too. I have a whole list of clauses I looked at.
Alan, what do you think?
I'm comfortable, as I said, I just don't wanna hurt anybody else.
Alan's our research arm.
Wow, don't get too excited.
There, just for correction, there was a motion on the table to table this action to the
yeah.
next
Oh, yeah.
meeting. You may,
Can you withdraw this?
if you're gonna discuss this now, I think you
Yes.
should withdraw.
Yeah, I have to withdraw that motion.
Okay, I withdraw the motion. All right, Alan, fire away. I'll
Well,
follow up.
first thing I looked for was a reference to alternative energy use, and I couldn't find much. I appreciate what Holly came up with.
So, I did find a reference under economic development on page 105.
Okay, well, let's prove that a little at a time.
Where it says encourage the use of,
Green building technologies.
right, and I didn't know what that means until page 107 where it says such as solar.
Yeah.
Okay, a solar panel array in a field is not a green building.
Yeah, see, that's why I didn't bite
I
for
agree.
that. So basically, here's what I came up with. I have no position right now. Just for fun, let's make these 2 columns, for and against.
Okay?
Okay? Under 4, to me, this comes up to be essentially a new business in town. Somebody wants to open a new business. That business is producing electricity from solar panels. It's got some striking differences, but at its core, it's a business that wants to open in town and will enhance the tax base. That certainly comes under enhanced economic activity, I would think. Under page 8, flipping around. That's the reference to promoting economic development. Under page 105, it talks about promoting net economic development, which essentially taking your taxes and subtracting out town costs. In this case, there aren't any town costs that I can identify in particular. There's no police, no fire, no traffic, no school kids. So the POCD does like net economic positive development. Clearly, it increases the grand list. The use of the farmland reverts back to farmland at the end of, I think it's 20 or 25 years.
So you consider that preservation of farmland?
Yes. But I have a question for Mike. This is the question I have. When the POCD talks about promoting agricultural land, does it have to be zoned agricultural or that its current use is agricultural?
Well,
Because
there's
this is not.
There's
This
no
is-
agricultural zone in
There's no
town.
agricultural zone.
It's allowed as of right in
Okay.
the zone.
So Hall
zoning
Farms
districts.
is zoned something,
Residential,
residential.
in that
Okay.
case.
So there is no agricultural zone. Okay, so if it's in use as agricultural land, that would apply. Does it have to be in use now or historically in use? There's no answer.
Well, you could, a field can lie fallow for 5, 10 years, and then you could revive the use. And that's,
So there's no specific.
there's no,
time.
there's no like It's not like there's an abandonment clause that say after 2 years, you're no longer using it as agriculture.
The other thing that I dug out that I thought was pertinent, there may be more, is that any business or entity built there will have negative impacts on town character by varying degrees, depending
So
on
you're
what it is.
now you're switching the column to the negative side, right?
No.
Well, I'm just saying, you were doing so
This
good on
one's
the positive
wishy-washy.
side.
This one's wishy-washy.
Wishy-washy ones?
Yep.
I didn't know there was a middle one.
So, if you wanted to look at this, I suppose you could argue that as compared, the landowner has indicated he'd like to develop the property. And if we're thinking about town character, which is on the other side of the page, then certainly there could be uses there that are much more detrimental to character than this, and I suppose perhaps some uses that are less detrimental. On the other side, the PLCD on page 7 talks about protecting open spaces. On page, this would take some of that.
Is this considered an open space?
Nope.
Um,
It isn't on the open space map, that's true. But it's a space that's currently open.
It's undeveloped.
It's undeveloped. Page 29 talks about supporting farms and preserve farmland to help retain the rural characteristics of the community. I think that applies. Page 30,
But is it zoned for farm? I mean,
what we just talked about.
but if
There
he
is
sells it to development, then it won't be serving it.
Well,
It's future.
let's first off, divide it into 3 parcels. You have one parcel that's to the south of County Road, or Hoskins Road. That's zoned residential. The next parcel, we're still on County at the triangle there, to the north, that's zoned industrial. So in industrial use, such as a wholesale manufacturing or a warehouse, can go there, site plan approval. Then the larger parcel further to the north, which there's an access adjacent to Money Sunk in Litchfield, that's zoned residential R40 up there. And once again, agricultural is allowed
In residential.
in residential.
But it's not, there is no agricultural zone.
Right, that's correct.
So page 30 talks about strongly supporting the preservation of working farms. I think I'd have to know more about that if somebody would consider that a working farm. If it's being farmed, it's somebody's working. Page 46. This site is another character site in Simsbury, and we just had that discussion earlier this evening about how the POCD on page 48 talks about identifying and protecting senses of places, but in particular, I think we're interested in protecting the character places that are identified. There's some 36 of them in the POCD. Another question I'd have, on page 22, I think one of the things I saw in the letter that was sent to us is, do we need any more studies to determine if there are any conflicts with the POCD? And I would ask, do we need an environmental assessment of the property before a decision could be made, given its prior uses? I don't know. Don't have an answer to that. I would
They did prepare,
conservation for that.
they did prepare a phase 1 report associated with the petition. I have not reviewed that document yet. It's about 100-something page document.
Pending staff review of that. That might be the case.
I wonder, in that same vein,
Yeah.
covering the open land with the solar panels, I wonder if that changes the the drainage characteristics?
Stormwater.
Stormwater
I
management?
don't know.
Mike, do you
Talks
know,
about it.
is there a stormwater management system that's gonna be?
They will develop one. There's some.
They're gonna have catch basins and,
No, there was limited disturbance associated with this, I believe. Let's see,
It was page.
they had, I think, some stormwater basins proposed. Because you have really, the panels would be the only hard structure out there. There may be some gravel roads which will connect the, and I apologize because I don't have a real
Page 23 in this
development
bill.
plan with me. The, connect the site. But that's really, that comment, although your POCD has some comments about environmental concerns, it's, the stormwater ENS hat really will be a conservation commission
Okay.
gig, than the planning commission. I would, you could put some
we
general
can't-
statement in there, but you don't get tied into specifics.
Well, when they asked, do we need further studies, would that need to be assessed or not? I would look to town staff for advice on that.
Yeah, and we would assess that as we go digesting this 1,200-page document.
Page 19 talks about encourage habitat-friendly environments. I don't know what this does to any wildlife corridors. I don't know what this does, frankly, I couldn't tell from the map what it does to any open space corridors that might be planned. One thing I noticed, the POCD on page 86 clearly, no, page 135, sorry, clearly calls for consideration of a roadway from Route 10 up to basically the intersection of Hoskins and County Road.
That
And
is,
I think that this simply wouldn't allow that. It wouldn't be able to do that, at least
Say that again?
not by the map I saw. The POCD on page 135, I remember when that was being debated years ago. They thought how important it would be, what a good idea it would be, to have, to reduce traffic and access, to have a roadway running from Hot Meadow Street, basically near,
Westcott?
yes, I believe so. Running diagonally, what would that be, southwest, towards Hoskins and County Road, which is right where this is.
Yeah.
to alleviate traffic off of
Ten.
Hot Meadow, which I have to say, it's, I
So-
think, very important to our
This is
future.
right in the middle where that road was proposed.
Yeah, and that's
Proposed
my
improvement.
biggest heartburn.
Page 44,
So like, okay.
Dorset,
Maybe-
yeah. Oh, and down that.
That concern right there, the connectivity, the future collector road, it's in your 2007 plan. We've discussed it in the update in the 2017. If that's a concern of the commission, and a comment maybe you could make is that your POCD calls for on page 135, a future connection road. And any considerations of development of this property should incorporate these concerns as outlined in our POCD.
I think that's
Yeah,
the
that's very
tack we
important.
should take with all these, is
Right,
pick
so-
the important ones.
Let me ask this $64,000 question. Who's gonna scribe this conversation? Mike, are you taking notes or?
Well, the staff could gotta put together the comments that the commission makes right now, this evening. And you could authorize staff to work with the chairman if we were all to agree on some blanket statements. If the board's comfortable with the chairman finalizing it to send to the board of selectmen.
Good.
So, we okay with that decision?
I'm okay with that, however, I would, toward that end, I would like to double emphasize that. I feel that as stewards of this town and thinking about as we grow and our future development, I am very concerned about traffic on Hot Meadow. And just as Iron Horse alleviates traffic on Hot Meadow and gives us a better circulation. If we cut that off, this will be very, very
In our
detrimental
letter,
for
though,
the
we
town.
just want to reference what.
Right, but I mean, it's, I would just give that extra weight. I mean, there's, as we say, it's a lot of subjective, a lot of pro and a lot of con, but this is a major con. I just want to throw that out there.
Page 44 talks about sense of place, and I think we've had a discussion about exactly what that means, but when you drive by there, you certainly get a sense of place from what you see. Page 113, POCD talks about development should be in harmony with its surroundings. That was my side.
Okay.
Some of those may be more powerful than others. It's not the first time, just so anybody listening understands, that the POCD isn't clear on an issue.
Right.
It's not meant to be a specific set of regulations. It's a general discussion of where we think the town should go. We should, I hope, in the new one, look at it more often. Things change, you know. Solar energy is a much bigger thing now than it was 10 years ago. So it's not uncommon to have things that seem to conflict with each other, and our job is to sort through all this stuff and try and find out what the POCD is trying to tell us about something.
So my suggestion with the final product, and if you don't like it, just say it, okay? I think we should say, here's where it's consistent, and here's where it's inconsistent,
That was my idea.
okay?
That's,
I think
I'm
that's a great
for
idea.
that.
We don't have to pass judgment,
Right.
we can just present what we believe are
We'll just say
salient
that
items.
these are the issues we identify.
That's what I was getting at.
I think that
I think we should be specific.
I'm not sure you should take my word for every detail. That you-
Right, but
That
let's
doesn't mean you shouldn't look through it.
come
and
up with the top
your own.
So Holly, did you
I will
have
send you the-
any additional references that we should capture?
I don't, I mean, we mentioned, economic policy, and net economic development.
Yeah.
Just on page, I found that, yeah. Give me a second to read through all my scrolls. I have a page full of scrolls, so, just a minute. Well, when they talk about ensure the protection of historic resources, as I understand it, and that's on page, that's a policy under, on page 35, policy 2 under historic preservation. As I understand it now, the proposal is to save at least some tobacco barns, which we have no other assurances of other development that would save it. So I thought that was a small positive. And then, and you mentioned page 110 on the reduced tax burden through expanded economic development strategies. Did you have page 110 on that?
Didn't reference that page, I used another. But
Okay,
it's
so that was in
consistent.
addition, well, there's several things that talk about economic policy. Yeah, I think you covered everything else I had.
Wanted to talk a little more about the preserving agricultural land. It's not important to the POCD, but we all know that this was proposed the day before the new legislation went into effect, which would make it more difficult for agricultural land to become solar farms. Did that also address forested land? I'm told it did.
Yes.
Okay, I think that's true. So that argument about agricultural land and reducing forested land and turning it into a solar farms, I think that we should, if this is going to end up at the siting council, we should point a finger at that issue by saying that regardless of the bill that took effect July 1st, this is already in our POCD, is to protect agricultural land. I think that's another, something to emphasize.
Do you have anything to add, Bill?
No, the only one I think Alan touched on it, and maybe Holly did as well, is that one of the goals of our current POCD is to preserve, enhance, and promote the historic character of Simsbury.
How's that historic? Because it's a tobacco field?
It's just,
Well, those barns, they're
Right,
willing to
it's-
protect the barns, and we have no other
The
assurance.
historic character, I don't think Simsbury will be considered a hub of the Industrial Revolution. Okay, if it was, I would think, going from a steam engine to a gas turbine to solar panels would be a natural progression of the history. Okay, but here we're primarily an rural agricultural historic nature, so.
that's our history, and by putting up these solar panels in what is pretty essentially left of what was Simsbury in the tobacco growing area would be destroyed, and we may not even be able to bring it back. Even though it's 25 to 30 years, once it's lost. And I think, so, to your point, Bill, it does preserve the historic character of Simsbury.
I have a question, and Mr. Chairman. How far out can we look at this? Because the reason we've lost so much of what was our historic past is we've grown and we've developed and we've added lots of houses. And unfortunately, what used to be vistas you can't even imagine what it used to look like. And how do we look at the lesser of two evils? I would be more concerned if this didn't go through, that Griffin Land sold it for development, as it is allowed in the POCD. It did show us what's allowed to be done, and that would absolutely, positively destroy that sense of history. So this is more a lesser of two evils, because you would still have at least some barns, you'd have some protected vistas. You wouldn't be having buildings and warehouses. Warehouses are allowed. Industrial, massive amounts of asphalt are allowed.
It is, but we're assessing the issue in front of us. I get that, I get what you're saying.
And that's
Don't get
what
me
really
wrong.
worries me the most.
But that's
yeah.
for us to address.
And that road,
This
we need
is
that
right in
road.
front of us, and this is where we have to, we're talking about this one use. And
Yeah.
and really, you have to look at this, if it was coming to our board, as far as I'm concerned, even though it's not. I think we need to raise the concerns that we would raise if we were making a decision on this property. And think of it that way. And then, how would we advise, because we can't, because all we can do is advise here, how would we advise the powers to be that, if they were coming to us, this may or may not pass, and these are our concerns.
Right.
So we can only talk about the things that are in front of us, because we don't know what can happen in the future. We also know that, Marywood is right down the street. We know that's gonna happen. Someday, maybe, okay, but that's neither here nor there. What I'm at is that it was nice of them to draw this pretty picture with lots of squares on it, but it doesn't mean anything.
What I've noticed in the last 17 years is when a proposal gets turned down and it turns out the alternative use sometimes is worse than the proposed use that they didn't want.
Don't you think we should stick to the POCD in this issue? I think so.
So, I'm just thinking about how the
In
POCD applies to the
fairness-
future.
In fairness, in 20, 25 years, this is supposed to go away and everything's just.
Well, maybe the farmland is preserved in that respect.
I guess that's what I'm trying to say.
That's what I'm
It's a
getting at.
backdoor preservation, and that might be our only hope to preserve this.
But, then we take that to the negative of the economic development, which we have in our positive column. The negative of, it will go away, and we will become dependent on that revenue that will go away, and we'll be in the same position, we could theoretically be in the same position that we are with the Harvey property.
Which we are recovering from.
Yeah, we are recovering from, but it was still very, very painful. As we all know, we went through that. So, we have a theoretical end game here. Yes, it does maybe possibility preserve some of this space, but we don't know what's gonna happen afterwards,
In
right?
20 years,
Yeah.
solar panels may be half the size and twice as potent, and they do it again, we don't know.
Who
Right.
knows? But in any event, like, that's,
No.
again, we have to look at what's in front of us,
That's right.
and, yeah.
The way I read this, though, is it definite after 25? I didn't get that sense that after 25, this was gonna necessarily disappear.
Thank you.
And it
Thank
doesn't
you.
have to.
No, that's what I'm saying. So when you're saying 25, I don't think we can think going into this that
Right.
it's gonna end at 25 years. It's just that
There is no end to
solar
this.
pet,
It
yeah.
can be re-upped.
It can be re-upped, yeah.
Or houses. They're buying the land.
So,
Okay,
there
so-
is one more reference in here on, sorry, I keep thinking.
Yeah,
On, trying to think what it is. This POCD talks about that area specifically. Page 86, let me take a look at that. How we want to grow. The Northern Gateway, it calls. Now, is this part of the Northern Gateway, Mike?
That is correct.
Okay. On page 86, it says there are a variety of zones in this area, which certainly are. In the meantime, it calls for residential uses and zoning along Hoskins Road, reinforce the character of that neighborhood, and provide a good transition from Route 10 and should remain. On page 86.
Can you read the beginning of that again, Alex?
So they're actually
Yeah.
calling it, they wanna call it, form district.
It starts
right?
in 85. It talks about the Northern Gateway preferred strategies. And then, starting the next page, it says, while there are a variety of zones in this area at the present time, an overall master plan could form the basis for a new overall zoning configuration in this area. In the meantime, the first bullet is residential uses and zoning along Hoskins Road, reinforce the character of that neighborhood and provide a good transition from Route 10, Hop Meadow Street, and should remain. That's pretty clear.
I agree.
Like it or not, that's what
Yeah.
it says.
That was a good, that's a good catch right there.
Also your collector road, you go further down in that.
yeah,
that
it's the
page.
same page.
That's the same
Same
page,
page.
86, right? I thought it was-
Well, we said
Yeah.
135 before.
Oh, I
is
think
it-
it also
Yeah, this
mentions
actually
it
talks
there.
Well, this
that.
one's really clear. In addition to any priority development of the north end should include a right-of-way for an arterial connection between the intersections of Wolcott Road and Route 10 Hot Meadow Street through the intersection of Hoskins and County Road. The arterial will divert traffic wishing to go north on Route 10 and/or Wolcott Road away from Hoskins, Eli Lane, and Route 10 Hot Meadow Street intersection. This proposal is also consistent with a recommendation to shift Route 315 to Wolcott Road.
When I said 135, you know what that is? The map. That's the map. The verbiage is on page.
The verbiage is on
86.
86.
And that's strong verbiage right there.
Like I say, it's what it says.
Yeah, that is, I think, very important to our future, that arterial road. Right now,
Yeah, also, you know,
Hot Meadow's getting crazy.
So this is, I don't know if it's gonna be a lot, acceptable to the commission, but there's nothing in the POCD about generating power,
Nothing.
Nothing at all.
okay?
That's what I said, there's no reference to it.
Yep.
Yeah, your resiliency issues didn't, you know, you have them in your new revision, but it wasn't really part of
Even
the
that,
scope
you
of
know,
that.
Even
I
Not
don't
to this
think it
extent.
foresaw a 26 megawatt solar panel array.
No.
All right, Mike, I think you got a number of bullet points there.
You still want me to send you this?
Please.
Please. Copy that.
Yeah, sure. Yeah,
Is it
Just give me those
hieroglyphics?
papers.
you can-
Yeah.
Okay, so this is what we'll do. We'll conclude our discussion. Whoever wants to send bullet items to Mike,
I'll do it.
yeah, well, okay,
But maybe someone else does too.
might want
Yeah.
to add something to it. Mike, you can collate them, and then you and I will work on the final product.
Yep.
In essence, it'll be citations of where we call an application or petition, whatever. Petition is consistent with the POCD, and another section where it's inconsistent.
And the commission is basically not taking a position overall, you're just outlining favorables or flaws.
Yes.
Is that a consensus with the group here?
Yes.
No, I think we should be making a comment on whether or not overall, that's just my opinion.
All right, so I think we should
Well-
probably vote on that.
I think we should do both, but I think we should come out with a statement saying whether or not we overall, I mean,
Oh, we're gonna put evidence, both pro and con. So,
but we don't land on either way, I think we should.
we're not being asked to make a judgment. Right, it's not a referral.
Right.
And you're strictly advisory, your opinion could be ignored, or even the concerns you brought up are.
That's okay, but we should. I
No,
don't
I'm just
mind
saying,
either.
I'm just, I don't,
Right, I
I'm
mean,
not
this could
willing
be
to.
ignored, but I just
Yeah.
feel like we should.
We're asking to evaluate it in terms of compatibility and consistently with the POCD.
Right.
And that's what we
That's
do
what we're doing.
when we
Right.
give a list.
It'll be compatible in this
Right.
respect.
Don't
But
you
I,
think-
I still think I'm just my opinion, I was the one that recommended we do the pros and cons, I don't wanna just make this sugar-coated vanilla say yes, or, you know. But I also feel strongly that this is such a hot topic in town that we're giving them, but why not make an opinion one way or the other? You guys can all
That's
disagree
what
with me and we don't have to put it in, I'm just going on record as saying, I would, as a commissioner, wanna make a stronger statement along with the pros and cons, saying, you know, yay or nay, that's just, you know,
I suspect there are any pros and cons going to speak for themselves.
I don't care if it does, I think we should make a statement, so I'm going on. So here I was wishy-washy before, now I don't wanna be wishy-washy.
Don't think I didn't think of that.
I wasn't wishy-washy, I just couldn't make up my mind. Same thing. So, no, I just feel that this is such a huge thing that hits the town, and, so anyway, okay, but I feel fine being in the minority.
I suppose you could make a motion to have the commission take a position.
Yeah, see, the decision isn't made locally, so we're just
Yeah.
It
providing
doesn't
information.
matter. I don't think we should be, again, I don't think we should let the tail wag the dog. I don't care that I don't care. I think as citizens, as elected officials, it doesn't matter. If we're gonna do the pros and cons, I feel strongly we should come out with a stronger statement. It doesn't matter, it could all fall on deaf ears. This could fall on deaf ears. But any information that could possibly sway either way, you know what I mean? I just feel like, so it really,
Well, okay, so Alan, yeah,
Could we
to your
take a
point-
straw vote? Could we take a straw vote? And then once this is written up, if you wanted to add a line that reflects the straw vote? Not a, it's the consensus of opinion that generally, something like that?
That's what I was thinking too.
Yeah, rather than a hard vote. Does that make sense? You know what I'm saying? It's the sense of the commission kind of vote.
so you're suggesting that there was a unofficial vote or whatever, and that the consensus, or lack thereof.
I think
was-
The vote would authorize Bill to put in a sentence that says that the sense of the commission was. Whatever.
Oh, so that's what you're saying, to vote on, to say, yeah, okay.
Yeah, so based on
okay.
what we've discussed,
Right.
I would think that we could add something that it is the
Consensus.
consensus of the planning commission that that the petition is generally not consistent with the POCD, but has elements of consistency.
I could live with
Is
that.
that wishy-washy enough?
No,
To start.
but that is, it's at least leaning one way or the other. And I would find that, because there are elements that would be a 4 for the POCD. But is it more balanced again? Do you know, and so just to be clear, you know, Alan said, well, they'll see by that. Well, yeah, but I think we could also add a little statement, like you just said, that it really,
Is everyone okay with that?
And- yeah.
And you'll get the opportunity
Yeah.
to see the final thing before we send it out anyway.
So the We don't need to vote,
No.
we have a consensus.
Yeah, we have, well, we
I
have.
just want to ask one question. When we normally do make a vote, we're allowed to have conditions. We say generally with these following conditions. But what we're gonna, our straw man would be just as is?
The petition? Yes, yeah, no, we don't have the ability to amend.
Okay, all right, then that's a good, that's very
Right.
good. That gives me my answer.
Mr. Chairman, I asked the commission actually take a vote just to authorize the chair to work with staff on this letter. At least that way, I'm a little more comfortable to work with Bill one-on-one.
I like that motion.
Kind of.
Make a motion that the chairman work with town staff on drafting the response to the Board of Selectmen's request.
Which would say,
Which would say the consistency with, for or against the POCD
well,
that they currently.
the consensus of opinion.
Yeah,
that-
and the consensus opinion of the board of planning. Does that work? Does that work?
Is that clear enough?
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Consensus is not consistent with POCD? Is that what we said before?
I believe so. Correct?
Goals and objectives of POCD?
Right.
Correct. So I
Works.
second.
That works for me.
Okay,
Yeah.
I second that.
Okay, so Aaron
I agree.
seconded, Pam. All in favor of the motion, please say, oh, I'm sorry, any discussion? All in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? So, motion passes unanimously. Okay, so Mike, you and I,
And we're gonna draft that letter.
yeah.
So our
Mr.
consensus.
Chairman, will you take public comments,
Thank you.
even though you've discussed it?
Usually I'm not wishing.
You also have your consultant waiting.
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
We're complete with that agenda item.
So our consensus was it was not compatible with the POC.
Right, but you will not take public comments even though you discussed in detail?
It wasn't a public hearing, and it's my decision at this point not to take public comment. Okay, so now we go on to our next item. Glenn, thank you for being patient with us tonight. And we have POC discussion. POCD, sorry.
Were you taking notes, Mark?
Well,
Were you taking notes or were you playing?
Yeah, bring your
words
letters
with
for you.
That's much appreciated.
So good news and bad news for you.
They just want us to-
Good news is we're close to the end. The bad news is that tonight, we kind of need to get through all of the comments so that the commission give me direction as to how to modify the plan.